Hi, this episode is a recording of a YouTube live I did looking at Adnan Syed. As it is a recording, you can't take part in the poll that I mentioned or interact, but I hope you enjoy a look at Adnan Syed's words. We're going to look at this guy, Adnan Syed, in this episode. Is he an innocent kid convicted of a crime by a corrupt and rubbish police investigation, or is he a brutal killer who brutally murdered his ex, Hae Min Lee? That's what we're going to look at in this episode, and it's live. And the reason that I'm live is because I want your interaction. That's the whole reason I go live, because it's great to discuss the words with you. So if you are there, then do say hello, do chime in with your comments and your opinions too as well. And don't forget, vote in the poll that's available too. Currently showing that 17% of people think Adnan Syed is guilty. That's innocent is 14%, not sure 57%. It's changing all the time, which is why that probably doesn't add up to 100%. We'll keep an eye on that as we go on. So what's happened with Adnan Syed recently? Well, he was released from prison a couple of years ago. It did look like his conviction for murdering Hae Min Lee was going to be vacated, and then he would not be guilty of murder anymore. However, in the past week, I think it's come out that that conviction is not going to be quashed. He is still going to be guilty in the court's eyes and the law's eyes of murdering Hae Min Lee. The story came to prominence in Serial Podcast. Now, this frightened me when I looked at it today. Serial Podcast was 2014. That is 11 years ago. That's a long, long time ago. It seems like just yesterday. But the Serial Podcast spoke to Adnan and all sorts of people involved in the case, and legal experts as well, to see if Adnan was innocent or guilty. I think one of the attractions of the podcast was that they actually spoke to Adnan when he was in prison. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the words that he used on the Serial Podcast in the very first episode, which is, I think, where most of his words appeared, to see if we can work out just by looking at the words. And that's all I do here. I just look at the words to see if I can pick up whether I think he is innocent or whether he is guilty. Just by looking at the words that are there, we'll try and find clues to that. So are you ready? Let's dive on in. And this is the very first thing that Adnan said in the podcast. I'll read it through and then we'll do some analysis on it. He said, "I just sometimes wish they could look into my brain and see how I really felt about her. And no matter what else someone would say, they would see, man, this guy had no ill will towards her. Whatever the motivation is to kill someone, I absolutely, it didn't exist in me. You know what I mean? No one can ever say why. People could say why. Oh man, he was mad, this, that, or the other. But no one could ever come up with any type of proof or anecdote or anything to ever say that I was ever mad at her, that I was ever angry with her, that I ever threatened her. That's the only thing I can really hold on to. That is like my only firm handhold in this whole thing, that no one's ever been able to prove it. No one ever has been able to provide any shred of evidence that I had anything but friendship towards her, like love and respect for her. That's, at the end of the day, man, that's the only thing I can say, man, is I had no reason to kill her." Quite a lot there for an introductory piece from Adnan. So what did I pick up in all of that? Hey, his second word is just. If you're a regular around these parts, you'll know that just is one of my go-to words. When someone says just, it's not a proof that deception's happening. It's an indication deception could be happening. So when I see the word just, I dive in and go, what is going on here? Just is either a word that minimizes some things. I was just checking up on you. No, I was really bothered about you, or it is to focus our attention on one thing but also away from other things. It's just what I want you to look at here. So when he says just, I go, oh hey, have we got some deception going on here? He says, I just sometimes wish they could look into my brain and see how I really felt about her. He doesn't say how he feels there. It's just how I really felt about her, as if there are two little things that could be going on there. There's what he thinks is inside his brain that people could see, which is how he felt about her. And then maybe there's another how he felt about her that he's not classifying as really there, but already he's given off some vibes here that there are two different stories at play. One of them is how he really felt about her. The other one is what people say he felt about her. He calls Hae her. here. And I don't think once in this entire transcript from this episode 1 of Serial, I don't think once he refers to her by name. Now, that's a bit of an indication for me that there's distance there. We tend to talk fondly of people. When we talk fondly of people, we will use their name every now and again. You know, I won't say she's in the chat, but I'll say Sinead's in the chat. I won't say she's in the chat. I'll say, hi, Sheila. But he always refers to Hey as her. So already, that's one line in, one word in. I'm going, what's going on here? And no matter what else someone would say, they would see, man, this guy had no ill will towards her. And then he says, whatever the motivation is to kill someone. Now, there are lots of motivations to kill people. Sadly, we see it happen all the time. Dislike, ill will can be one of those things, but people are killed over money, power, a sickness in the head. You know, so what he's doing here is narrowing down the motivation to kill someone to ill will. That's interesting. Why is he narrowing it down to the reason that he was killed was ill will? And then he seems to catch himself there and go, whatever the motivation is to kill somebody. So he realizes he has narrowed it down there to ill will, to dislike for this person. And whatever the motivation is to kill someone, he says, it didn't exist in me. Now, absolutely is another one of those words where it's trying too hard. It's an LY word, which is words to always pay attention to when they're being said. What do they mean? Why is it there? He could have just said, the motivation to kill someone didn't exist in me, but he has to put absolutely in there. He's trying to persuade us and convince us that this is true. And then he says, no one can ever say why. Really? No one can ever say why? The police had a theory as to why it happened, so people could say why. So that, frankly, that's a lie, that part there. So he's lying to us there. He's not saying, people had a reason why, but that was not within me, or, you know, that might have been a motive that people could pick on, but I didn't do it, you know. But no, he says no one can ever say why, and that is a lie. And then he corrects that lie because he says people could say why. So again, we've just got this duplicity coming through from Adnan's words here. No one can ever say why. People could say why. Oh man, he was mad, this, that, or the other. And again, we're going to this theory that he was killed because of anger, because of ill will. It's the only theory that he, and this certainly in this opening part, it's the only theory that he looks at here as to why he was killed. I believe this is leakage. I believe this is, he knows, and we'll come to it, but he knows that it was anger and ill will and madness that got he killed. Oh man, he was mad, this, that, or the other. But no one could ever come up with any type of proof or anecdote or anything to say that I was ever mad at her, that I was ever angry with her, that I ever threatened her. Really? To people who follow the case, would you like to say, has anyone come up with any type of proof or anecdote that he was mad at her? Because I believe that has happened. I believe people have said that. So again, this would be a lie from Adnan. He says, oh, hello, let's go with Joe, who's just come in to say, I say absolutely all the time. Joe, you are one of the most deceptive people I know. I'm only kidding. Look, it's an indication of deception. But do look at why you use it. Do you use it to convince people that you really mean no, or you really mean something by adding absolutely in there? Would it just be that you could just say the thing without the absolutely and it would mean the exact same thing? That would be my challenge to you, Joe. But thank you very much for your comment. Okay, let's get back to Adnan. That's the only thing that I can really hold on to, is the next thing he says. That's the only thing I can really hold on to. That is like my only firm handhold in this whole thing, that no one's ever been able to prove it. Now, let's go first with the no one's ever been able to prove it. Well, someone did, because you were found guilty in court. So once again, he's telling lies in this opening statement on the podcast. He is telling lies. People have been able to prove it. It's been proven in court. But what I really didn't like was the use of the word hold twice. Hold and handhold, because he died by strangulation. And he is using words like hold and handhold. Is that leakage coming out there? The only thing I can really hold on to, that is the only firm handhold in this whole thing. I didn't like that at all. And then he continues, no one has ever been able to provide any shred of evidence that I had anything but friendship towards her, like love and respect for her. So again, he's going to say that the only reason that Hay died, in his opinion, is because someone did not have friendship towards her, someone did not love her, someone did not respect her. So again, I think this is leakage that he knows the reason why Hay was killed. But again, this is not true, because people have provided at least shreds of evidence that you had disrespect for her. He then says, that's at the end of the day, the only thing I can ever say is, man, I had no reason to kill her. And then again, we have a logical fallacy here. I had no reason to kill her. People are murdered every single day for what you would consider no reason. So that opening statement is flimsy as hell. Let's look at some comments here. Let's look, where is the poll at? Do you think Adnan is guilty? 38%. Innocent, 19%. Not sure is winning at the moment with 44%. Shannon, hello to you. Thank you. I voted not sure, but I am really interested in this case. Thanks for doing this, Jack. That is great. International audience, Jack, says Sinead. Great. I really like to see that. I did see someone earlier say that this case, the Adnan Syed Hayman Lee case, happened in their state. So it's great. Sorry, I cannot find you in the chat, but it's great to have you joining. Sheila says that, Shannon, I'm not convinced either way. Let's see. Let me just write down Sinead and Shannon. If you're still here at the end, sorry, Sheila and Shannon. Too many S's. We'll see if you have changed your view by the time we get to the end of this. Sinead, is this an American case? Yeah. Was it Baltimore? I think that it happened in, and it was it late 90s, early noughties, that this happened in as well, I think, Sinead. Right, let's go on. And the next thing we hear in the podcast is a conversation between Adnan and Sarah Koenig, who was the presenter of the Serial podcast, and she was the one who was doing the interviews with him in prison. So we hear Adnan say, and it occurred to me that day that I was going to ask her boyfriend, Jay, did he get her a gift? So sometime during the day before noon. What he's talking about here is the day that Hayman Lee was murdered. Sarah says, wait, Adnan, just hold up for a second. Why did you care whether Jay got Stephanie a present? What's it to you? Adnan says, well, Stephanie was a very close friend of mine, as I mentioned, and I just kind of wanted to make sure that she also got a gift from him, you know? She had mentioned to me that she was looking forward to getting a gift from him. She mentioned that she was really happy to get the gift I gave her. So, as I would with any friend, I just kind of went to check on that. I kind of had a feeling that maybe he didn't get her a gift, and I had free periods during school. So it was not abnormal for me to leave school, go do something, and then come back. Right. Adnan says, and it occurred to me that day, I was going to ask her boyfriend, Jay, did he get her a gift? So sometime during the day before noon. So that, and it occurred to me, doesn't need to be said. It's needless. It doesn't add anything to the meaning of what he's saying. But why? So why is he introducing it? Is it that he wants to show a sort of casualness here? You know, it occurred to me that day I was going to ask her boyfriend, when really this was a premeditated ruse that he wants to make look like it's on the spur of the moment. And I think it could be that, because there's a lot of kind of casualness going on here that he wants to get across. It's not important to convey the casualness of what happened, to answer the questions and talk about what happened that day. But he really is, hey, and it occurred to me that day that I was going to ask her boyfriend, Jay, did he get her a gift? So Sarah asks him, hold up for a second. Why did you care whether Jay got Stephanie a present? What was it to you? And Adnan starts with, well, he says, well, Stephanie was a close friend of mine, as I mentioned. Now, when someone starts a question, a response with, well, that's a signal. That's a signal that something more is going on than just having the question answered. It means that something's coming up that is going to be surprising, or I'm going to explain what the answer to you, rather than just give you the answer outright. I'm going to explain here. I'm going to go into a bit of storytelling mode, which I think is what is going on here. Well, Stephanie was a very close friend of mine, as I mentioned. Now, frequently, when I look at deception, I will see a liar using phrases like, as I mentioned, as I've said before, as I've said a lot, because what they want to do, what liars want to do, is stay consistent. They think that the more they point out how consistent they've been, the more consistent they will sound, and then that makes them feel like they are getting across a very honest message, or what will be perceived as an honest message by the listener, because what they're saying is, I'm not flipping about here from story to story and being contradictory. I'm being very consistent. And that's why it's not enough for them just to be consistent. They have to point out how consistent they are. And is that what is going on here with Adnan's as I mentioned here? So Stephanie was a very close friend of mine. As I mentioned, I've been very consistent with this. This makes a lot of sense because I've been saying it consistently. And then we've got more of this casualness. I just kind of wanted to make sure that she got a gift from him, you know. Well, again, why are you bringing in this casualness? Or was it not really that big a deal to you that you're just going, I just kind of wanted to make sure? I think he wants to get across this sort of, it was so casual as we went through the day that she also got a gift from him, you know. She had mentioned to me that she was looking forward to getting a gift from him. She mentioned that she was really happy to get the gift that I gave her. So, as I would with any friend, and this is now him pointing out how normal everything is that he does. And again, it's something else I see in liars a lot. It's not proof. If someone points out something is normal, it's not proof that they're lying, but it's something that liars do, is point out how normal things were on the day when something abnormal happened. So as I would with any friend, I just kind of went to check on that. And again, we've got this real vagueness, this real casualness there. I just kind of went to check on that. I kind of had a feeling maybe he didn't get a gift. So really what he's trying to do is, this was not a big deal. This was just something that almost happens all the time. I had a feeling that maybe he didn't get a gift. And I had free periods during school. So it was not abnormal. Again, pointing out how normal things are for me to leave school, to go do something and then come back. And I've noticed here, we have remarkable recall. Look at everything he can remember that afternoon, that it occurred to him that day that he was going to ask her boyfriend, did he get her a gift? So sometime during the day before noon. I mean, that's remarkable recall and clarity as to what happened that afternoon. And he can remember what happened before noon. It occurred to him that day that he was going to ask Jay. It didn't even, the recall is not that he asked Jay, it's that he was going to ask Jay. Amazing recall. And then I just kind of wanted to make sure that she also got a gift from him, you know? So again, he remembers on that day that he wanted to make sure Stephanie got a gift. He also remembers on that day that Stephanie mentioned that she was looking forward to getting a gift from him, and also that she mentioned she was really happy with the gift that Adnan gave her. And he remembers going to check on that. He remembers that day he had a feeling that Jay did not get Stephanie a gift. He remembers he had free periods during school that day. The recall is great that day. So it was not abnormal for me to go to school and then come back. So the recall, absolutely fantastic at this point here. Adnan continues. So I went to his house and I asked him, did you happen to get a present for Stephanie? And he said no. So I said, if you want to, you can drop me off. You can drop me back off to school. You can borrow my car and you can go to the mall and get a gift for her or whatever. Then just come pick me up after track practice that day. Sarah asks, so then what happened? And then Adnan says, well, then when school was over, I would have went to the library. I know that I usually check. Well, I didn't usually check, but if I was going to check my email, it would be using the library computer. You know, sometimes I would go there because track practice didn't start until around maybe 3 o'clock or 3:30-ish. So it didn't start right after school. So there was a period of time, almost like an hour and some change, that was kind of free time. Right. So what have we got here? We've got and so storytelling. That's when where the person's telling a story and they say, and something happened, so something ensued. And it's explaining what happened. It's not just telling us the actions that happened, but it is the and so storytelling thing, which again suggests to me there's a little bit of storytelling going on. And again, look at the perfect recall that takes place here again. That he remembers going to Jay's house. He remembers asking Jay, did you get him a present? And for Stephanie, he remembers Jay saying no. So he remembers all the arrangements they made. If you want to, you can drop me off back to school and you can borrow my car and you can go to the mall. It's amazing detail that he is recalling there to get a gift or whatever. And just come pick me up after track practice that day. And then it all changes. And then it all changes because Sarah says, so then what happened? And Adnan says, well, then when school was over, and Charlotte, you spotted this in the chat. When school was over, I would have went to the library. That's not what he did that day. The recall, all of a sudden, when school was over, is gone. If you look, I would have went to the library. So he doesn't say I went to the library. It's just in general terms he's talking about here. When school was over, he went to the library, and then he just tells this big mess. I know that I usually check. Well, I didn't usually check, but if I was going to check my email, it would have been using the library computer. So he wants to give across this vibe that I always went to the library after school. And then, no, he's just like, no, sometimes I maybe went to the library to check my email, but I don't even know how often I went to check my email. You know, sometimes I'd go there because track practice didn't start until around maybe 3 o'clock, 3:30-ish. So both from all that perfect recall of knowing exactly what he'd said to Jay, when it all happened, the timelines, where he was when he said things, all of a sudden it's gone really, really vague. It was around 3 o'clock, 3:30-ish when track practice started. He doesn't know what time it started that day, despite the fact he knew before noon that he occurred to him to ask Jay if he'd got Stephanie a present. So it didn't start right after school. So there was a period of time, again, vagueness, almost like an hour and some change that was kind of free time. So we get into massive, massive, massive vagaries there. Before we move on, let's just have a check on a couple of comments. FF Big Papa says, how does this interview being so many years after the murder affect the analysis? It doesn't much affect my analysis. I think it would show, certain things would show in the passage of time. For example, if this is a story that Adnan's told a lot, he may have perfected it and taken some of the imperfections out, or just learned how to tell it smoother. It may become way more automatic to him. There may be less leakage if someone was lying and so on, but it doesn't really affect the analysis other than be aware of the passage of time. It certainly would show up if we were talking about 10 seasons, so on, but none of that turns up in this, but great question. And I wanted to look at this one from Terry as well. Terry says, my gut check alarm went off when I heard this interview. And I've got to say, I believe we have, I know we have a warning system inside our bodies. You know, instinctively, if you smell smoke, you go and check for a fire. If food tastes off, you don't eat any more of it. And I believe we also have this gut check when someone we feel someone is lying to us, that we go, and it puts us uneasy. I think the problem we have sometimes, Terry, is that our gut check says, this doesn't sound true, or can I trust this person? And then what we do is we bring reason and rationale into it, and we kind of go, I'm being unfair to this person. And so, we kind of go, no, I'll ignore my gut instinct because I'm being unfair. I'm being off. So yeah, look, my biggest advice would be, when your gut check alarm goes off, believe it. Look after yourself. Keep yourself at arm's distance. How's the poll doing? Guilty's now on 52%. Innocent 17%. Not sure is on 30%. So the poll has gone a little bit more of the way towards guilty. So let's go on with this. Adnan says, probably track practice would have ended at, like, I'd say 4:30. It probably would have been close to time for me to break fast. This story happens during Ramadan. He would have came to me to pick me up, and he would have went to get, we would have went to go get something to eat. And then we would have smoked some weed after, right? And then I would have had to be home around 7 or 8 o'clock, right? Or usually, like the last 10 nights of Ramadan, my father would spend the night at the mosque. So a lot of times I would take him food. I think my mother would make food for him, and I would take it before 8 o'clock, because that's the last evening prayer. So what more do we have here? More vagary. Probably track practice would have ended, like, I'd say 4:30. So he's talking in general terms again, but he's probably would have ended, like, I'd say. So huge vagueness there. Then Adnan says, it probably would have been close to time for me to break fast. So again, we've got this probably from that perfect recall he has about setting up this story as to why Jay has his car, etc. All of a sudden it's got very cloudy and he can't remember that time. And we've just got more of this general what would have happened on this mythical sort of hypothetical day. He would have came to pick me up and we would have went to get something to eat. So what we've got again, he knows in minute detail the conversations he had with Jay and Stephanie earlier on that day, but then coincidentally at this time a very bad thing was happening to his ex-girlfriend. He's just all would-haves. He would have come to pick me up. He would have gone to get something to eat, and then we would have smoked some weed, right? And then I would have been home around 7, 8 o'clock, right? Then again, when he's talking about what he would do around the mosque, or usually like the last 10 nights of Ramadan, my father would spend the night at the mosque. So a lot of times, so not every time, I would take him food. So this is just incredibly, incredibly flimsy. I think my mother would make food for him. I would take it usually before 8 o'clock, but he said he got home potentially around 8 o'clock. So who knows what's going on there, because that's the last evening prayer. So from all that pin sharp insight that we had with him, then it's just all gone into generals and things that would have happened, but he's not telling us what did happen for a moment. And that to me is at least worth noticing. And it's very black and white. It's not like some things are vague and some things are certain. From the moment school ended, boom, it is entirely vague from him there. Sarah Koenig says to him, "Did you ever leave campus before the end of track practice? Did you ever?" And Adnan interrupts and says, "No." Sarah Koenig says, "Okay." Adnan says, "No." Sarah Koenig says, "You sure?" And Adnan says, "I want to say that I'm 99% sure. I want to say that I'm 99% sure. Not, I'm 99% sure, but he wants to say that. So he's not even saying that. I want to say that I'm 99% sure." So he's not even 100% certain. And he explains that. Sarah Koenig says, "Okay." And Adnan says, "The reason why I can't say 100 is because, I do kind of understand that it comes across as I don't know if it does or it doesn't, but it seems like I remember things that are beneficial to me, but things that aren't beneficial to me, I can't remember. It's just that I don't really know what to say beyond the fact that a lot of the day that I do remember, it's bits and pieces that comes from what other people have said that they remember, right? And it kind of jogs my memory. Yeah, I don't really know what to say. And I can completely understand how that comes across. The only thing I can say is, man, it was just a normal day to me. There was absolutely nothing abnormal about that day." This gets me a lot. And this whole thing here about him trying to explain what he can remember and what he can't remember is very interesting. The reason why I can't say 100 is because, I do kind of understand it comes across as I don't know if it does or doesn't, but it seems like I remember things that are beneficial to me. And we've seen him remembering things that are beneficial to him, being a nice guy, being concerned that his friend has got a present. The fact he gave a friend a present. Oh, what a lovely guy he is. And he checked her boyfriend and got a present. And when he said no, I lent him my car and said, "Hey, go and get a present." So this is what we've got here. He does remember things that are beneficial to him. But then this, for me, is the most damning line we will say tonight. "But things that aren't beneficial to me, I can't remember." Well, Adnan, if you can't remember them, how do you know they aren't beneficial to you? He says it out loud that there are things that are not beneficial to him that, in his words, he can't remember. That scared the hell out of me when I saw that. He carries on and says, "Yeah, I don't really know what to say, and I completely understand how that comes across." Now, what I think we've got here is something that manipulators use quite a lot, which is people who have been accused of something really big will fess up to something really small, but it'll make them look honest. And the whole vibe they want to give is, look how honest I'm being about this, like I'm being open and honest. So if I'm being open and honest about this little thing, maybe I'm not lying about that big thing as well. And I think that's the vibe he's trying to give off here is, look, I understand how it comes across. I understand why people might think I'm guilty because I can't remember these things that are beneficial to me. But yeah, I think this is a bit of manipulative language that's going on here. But then he goes on to say, "It was just a normal day to me." Well, you do not know that because, well, you do know that, or you do know it's an abnormal day, but you do not know because you don't know what you did. After school, you just said, "I would have done this thing normally. I would have gone to the mosque, maybe gone and get something to eat." You do not know what kind of day it was because you can't remember. You say it was just a normal day. There was absolutely, there's that word again, absolutely nothing abnormal about that day. Adnan then says, "I definitely understand that someone could look at this and say, oh man, he must be lying." I wonder who would do that. "It's so coincidental that he doesn't remember what he did at this particular time." Hmm. I mean, I completely understand that and I get that. Good. Like I said, that's the hardest thing I have dealt with these past 15 years. There's nothing tangible that I can do to remember that day. There's nothing I can do to make me remember. I've poured through the transcripts. I've looked through the telephone records. What else can I do? There's nothing I can do. So perhaps I'll never be able to explain it. It is what it is. And if someone believes me or not, I have no control over it. What have we got here? I think we've just got more manipulative language going on here. It's the exact same concept as we've seen before, which is, look, I'm a nice, reasonable guy. If you don't believe me, I can't control that. Well, you have tried to control that by saying that, no one could ever offer any proof as to why you would do this, etc., which is not real. But the thing that really spoke out to me was, remember at the very beginning, he said he had love, friendship, respect for Hae-Min Lee. And yet the hardest thing he's dealt with for 15 years is that he can't remember what he was doing that day. Not the fact that someone on that day who he loved, had friendship and respect for, was brutally murdered. That wasn't hard at all. The hardest thing for him is the fact that this is what he's had to deal with for 15 years. So this is a little bit very much like, yeah, feel sorry for me. I'm the victim here. I'm the victim because I can't remember. And that is everything I have on Adnan Syed that he said in the first episode of Serial. So that's the analysis. So what do I think there? Look, there is no denial there from him in those statements at all. There is very much bluster. There's very many talking points, but he doesn't once say in all of that, I did not kill Hae-Min Lee, which is interesting. There's several slips there that seem to reveal that he knows more about the crime than he would like us to think. The logic in it is really bad. And that discrepancy between this pin-sharp recollection he has of things before the murder time and this complete vagueness and generalities of things during the time of the murder and post the time of the murder make me think it's highly likely that Adnan Syed is guilty of the crime of murdering Hae-Min Lee. What do you think? If you're a Spotify subscriber, you can leave comments on this platform. Otherwise, in the show notes, you can find links to all the socials, and it would be great to hear from you. And we'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.